My name is Margaret, though most people now simply call me Grandma Maggie. At the age of 82, I have lived through seasons of joy, sorrow, love, and loss. Tonight, as the fire crackles beside me, I feel a strong desire to share my story, not only to remember, but to leave behind something meaningful for those who will walk this earth after me. I was born in 1941 during the final years of the war. My first memories are filled with both fear and comfort. Fear because my parents would sometimes speak in hushed voices about air raids and food rations. Comfort because no matter how difficult times were, my mother's gentle humming and my father's reassuring smile made me feel safe. Our cottage was small but filled with love. My earliest days were spent running through green meadows, chasing butterflies, and helping my mother gather wildflowers. Life was simple, but to a child it felt magical. The fields stretched endlessly, and in spring, the air was alive with the fragrance of lilacs. I would lie on the grass, stare at the clouds, and imagine all the places I would someday see. And even as a little girl, I wondered about love. I'd see my parents hold hands after long, tiring days. They didn't have much. Our table was often bare, and winters were harsh, yet the way they looked at each other told me that love was richer than gold. I often wondered, will I ever find someone who will look at me like that? At 17, I could not have guessed how soon I would find the answer. Looking back now, as an old woman, I realize how destiny can weave lives together in ways we cannot imagine. And so, this is where my story begins, a story of love, courage, and the quiet strength of an ordinary girl. Heart learned extraordinary lessons. I often think of my childhood village, the place where my heart first learned how to dream. The houses were built of stone and wood, their chimneys puffing smoke into the morning air. The narrow lanes were always alive with the sound of children's laughter, and the baker's shop was the most magical place of all. The smell of fresh bread and pastries was enough to draw every child to its door. Even if we could not afford to buy anything, my mother was a gentle woman with strong hands. She spent her days working tirelessly to keep our home in order. She taught me how to sew, how to knead dough, and how to smile even when times were hard. My father worked in the fields, often returning with dirt-stained clothes and weary steps, but his eyes would light up whenever he saw me. Life was not rich in money, but it was rich in lessons. We learned to share, to give, to forgive. In those narrow streets, everyone knew everyone, and no door remained closed to a neighbor in need. Looking back now, I realize how rare and precious that sense of community was. As I approached my teenage years, the village began to feel both small and large. Small, because I knew every corner of it. Large, because within its boundaries, my imagination painted countless possibilities. I wanted to travel, to see London, to explore places I had only read about in books. But there was also a part of me that felt deeply rooted, like the oak tree near our cottage that had stood tall for generations.
His name was William. He lived just down the lane from us, and though our families knew each other well, I had never paid him much attention until one particular afternoon.
I was 17, carrying a heavy bucket of water from the well. My arms ached, and my grip slipped. The bucket tilted, and I stumbled forward. Before I could fall, a strong hand caught mine. "Careful there," a gentle voice said. I looked up and saw him, William, tall and broad-shouldered, his dark hair falling into his eyes. He smiled, and in that instant, something shifted inside me.
My heart raced, my cheeks burned, and words refused to form on my lips. I managed a clumsy thank you before hurrying away. But the memory of that smile followed me home, and it refused to leave. From then on, fate seemed to conspire to bring us together at the market near the church. Be the oak tree. He was always there. Our conversations were short, often about ordinary things. But his eyes lingered on mine just a little longer than necessary, and in those silent moments, a secret language grew between us. I began writing about him in my diary. Every detail, the way his laughter sounded, the way he carried himself, the kindness in his voice. My heart was learning a new rhythm, one that both excited and terrified me. The summer of my 17th year was unlike any other. William and I began to meet more often, though never openly. Society in those days was strict, and a girl's reputation was fragile. But beneath the branches of the oak tree, we found a world that belonged only to us. We spoke of dreams, his of becoming a teacher, mine of seeing the world. Sometimes we said nothing at all, simply sitting side by side, listening to the rustle of leaves and the distant laughter of children. It was in those silences that our bond grew deepest. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, William reached for my hand. I felt the warmth of his touch, and in that simple gesture, the unspoken truth of our hearts became clear. We were in love. Tears welled in my eyes, and before I could speak, he pressed a small locket into my hand. Inside was a picture of his late mother. She always told me, he whispered, that when I find the woman who makes my heart steady, I should give her this. I promised him then that no matter what happened, I would stand by him. We dreamed of building a home, of raising children, of growing old together. It was a dream that felt as real as the stars above us.